Hey there, I'm Joshua Sheehan. Welcome to the RVE Entrepreneur Podcast. Welcome back, entrepreneurs, to the RVE Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Joshua Sheehan, and we've got some really exciting news for you today. Rather than beat around the bush, I'm just going to jump into it and say that we are going to be bringing on 3 other podcast hosts for the podcast. I'm going to see how many times I can say podcast in this podcast episode. Ultimately, we are diversifying the cast and bringing on some different hosts to get you guys some different perspectives, some different angles. And some of these folks you are going to know and some you may not know. But the goal of this episode is to introduce you to the new host team of the RVE Entrepreneur Podcast, give a little background about who we are, what we're doing, and a little bit of a roadmap of what's going to happen going forth with the RVE Entrepreneur Podcast. So let's go around and just give a brief hello. We've got someone you may or may not know, Heath Padgett. We've also got Kimberly Crossland and Rose Willard. And so some of you may know Heath. He's kind of famous around these parts for starting this podcast. But Heath is coming back to jump on the hosting platform again and get us some awesome interviews in the future. Kimberly has been on the podcast as a guest, and Rose is new to the RV entrepreneur scene. I think what best to do here is we will go around the horn, kind of give everybody a chance to introduce themselves, tell us who you are, what you're doing, how you became involved in RV entrepreneur, and what you're looking forward to. And so some of you may or may not know anything about this person, but Heath, why don't you go first? I know there's a lot of new listeners to the podcast. Give us an introduction of who you are, what you're currently doing, and what you're looking forward to.
Hey, what's up, Joshua? Excited to be back on the podcast. For those who have listened before, it's good to talk to you again via the podcast. And for those who haven't, good to meet you. But my wife and I hit the road in 2014 in an RV. It was going to be 7 months. We ended up being on the road for 5 years. Started the RV Entrepreneur Podcast in 2016 and did it for quite some time. And then life took a bit of a different direction. Kids, software business, other businesses, and passed the torch off to you and Andy at RVE Life last year and kind of hit a big reset in our life where we're actually getting back and doing a fair bit of traveling in the season of life. We just got back from 5 weeks in Europe in an RV, and we have a bunch more travel planned in the next year. And I think what I'm most excited about is getting to have cool conversations with people living interesting life and building interesting businesses, because I miss that a lot. And so when Andy reached back out to me and asked me if I wanted to host an episode a month, I said, sure, that sounds fun, because I missed having these types of conversations. So
Kimberly, you're up.
All right. Thanks for having me back on. This is really fun to be here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kimberly Crossland. I own a few different businesses in the RV realm, but we are what I call messy middle RVers. We don't go full time, but we go out as often as we can and for as long as we can. So I often say that I have a goal in life of taking summers off, taking a couple of weeks off around the holidays. Just like you, Heath, I've got a couple of young kiddos. And so being able to be home with them and travel with them, show them the world is really, really amazing and fun and an absolute dream come true. I'm also a firm believer that we've never been in a better time to have that kind of experience where you can travel as often as you want, even if it is full time, like some of you other hosts here. And so I feel really grateful that we're in this time, and I just want to take full advantage of it. In terms of coming into the RV entrepreneur world, Joshua, you reached out and invited me on the show, which was such a gift. And I was so excited to say yes. And I was so excited to come on. And then I was also a speaker at the RV Entrepreneur Roundtable in Montrose, which was an experience that was honestly very unexpectedly good. I knew it was going to be good, but it was unexpectedly exceptional, I should say. We had such a great time there. I still talk to so many people from that experience. And so I just want to continue to get deeper and deeper into the RV entrepreneur world and get to know more people. So just like you, Heath, just getting to know other people's stories and hearing what they're up to, all these incredible ideas. I just get goosebumps when I talk to people who are pursuing something that they're so excited about, pursuing a life that they're so excited about. So I'm really, really excited for everything that's ahead.
Awesome. Thank you, Kimberly. Rose, who are you? What you doing?
I'm Rose Willard, and I'm excited to speak with fellow RV entrepreneurs and hear their stories and hopefully also inspire those people to start their own businesses on the road. And I want to thank you all for the opportunity to co-host with you. I'm a little nervous because this will be my first time ever being on a podcast like this. So, as time goes on, I know I'll get more comfortable with it and rock it. But a little background, I'm one of the YouTubers in this group. My family and I have been traveling full time in our RV for about 2 years and documenting our travels and lessons learned all over the country through our channel, Reset Your Journey. I never thought I'd be a YouTuber, but here I am. We, like a lot of people in 2020, sold everything, all that stuff, and just decided we needed a huge change. So a reset, kind of going back to what Heath talked about, that reset. And you don't necessarily have to do what we did, but we just felt like this was a good opportunity for us. I met Josh through the RV Entrepreneur Facebook group, and I was a part of it for a while. And then he put out there that they were looking to kind of bring on another host. And so I applied. So that's how I kind of got in with the RV Entrepreneur group. Kind of getting to the entrepreneurial side of things. I've always been an entrepreneur. My husband and I started a successful large personal training studio 22 years ago. And we, it was very lucrative and we helped a lot of people achieve their health goals and changed a lot of lives. It was very, very cool. But moving on, we were no longer challenged mentally and kind of complacent. So anyways, we learned a lot through that business, and that helped us take those skills and bring them mobile through our RV and starting our YouTube channel and all that. So I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. And for those of you listening to the podcast that don't know who I am, my name is Joshua Sheehan. I have a YouTube channel called Gander Flight. Also on all the other social media platforms. I'm a content creator, basically, doing DIY projects and RV-related things. I also created a group called the RV Content Creators Group. It's a mastermind for content creators in the RV space. And that's actually how I got hooked up with Heath last year before the previous summit. And then how we got hooked up doing hosting for this podcast. So I've been hosting this podcast for the past year. And then after Heath sold it to Andy and to RV Life, I continued hosting it throughout the summer. And then we just finished the RV Entrepreneur Roundtable this September, and we took a fall break, and now we're coming back, and we are adding to the podcast host lineup. So the way that it's going to work going forward is each of us are going to take a different week of the month. So we're not going to all be on the same call and the same interview with the guests, but we're each going to be a host interviewing a guest, and that's how it's going to go going forward. Who knows how it's going to work out? We're going to give this a try. We're going to try and add some diversity into it rather than just listening to me or just listening to Heath every week, adding some diversity into the guests and also from the hosts. I think should round out the whole RV Life entrepreneur brand a little bit more and is exactly what Andy was hoping to do. After he came home from the RV Entrepreneur Roundtable, we had a conversation. He's like, we need to keep this going. I was getting a little burnt out doing every week's episode in addition to all of my other content creation. And so the plan hatched that we would bring on some additional hosts, reduce my workload, while also getting some other guests and some other perspectives for you guys into the podcast feed. So we're all going to interview our own guests and have those published once a week. We're going to have a consistent editor. Kelsey, who Heath has used in the past, is now editing the podcast from all four of us. So hopefully we're going to have some continuity there in the style of what you're hearing on the podcast. And you also hear her voice. She's going to be doing the introductions to each podcast to kind of keep that a little bit consistent between the four hosts. One of the things about becoming host of the RV Entrepreneur podcast was that I could no longer really listen to the podcast. And so I'm excited to have other hosts on because now I get to be back in the listening chair and listen to the others interview guests and other entrepreneurs in the space. Sometimes it's nice to not be the one asking the questions, but just listening to the answers. So I'm excited for that to be back in the listening chair on that side of the equation. What else do we need to let these folks know about what's coming up and how we're moving forward?
When's the first episode coming out other than this one?
So the next episode will be the week after this one. So this one's coming out the first week of December. I've got an interview with Nikki Kirk from Your Selling Guide coming out the following week. And then we've got them scheduled to drop each week after that. Well, thank you guys for jumping on a quick podcast episode here to introduce yourselves and let the audience know who you are, what we're doing, how we're moving forward, and how the show's going to change a little bit. I'm really excited for it, and I hope the audience is excited as well. If you guys want to leave us a message, say hi to Heath, Kimberly, Rose, or myself, jump over to the RV Entrepreneur Facebook group, the rventrepreneur.com/Facebook. We'll take you there, and we'll see you on next week's episode. Happy trails.